Thank you. I recognize there's a pressure on time, so we could have avoided that introduction in terms of my time. What I want to do really this morning is to celebrate the art of carnival, to try and outline some of the challenges, some of the anxieties, and some of the issues around the celebration of that particular event. Oh yes, we've got. Which one is it? Okay. Right. And it's important, I think, that I explore some of these things with you, because I think it's an important aspect in terms of how this particular event is perceived. I'm sure everybody here probably would have seen Carnival, know about Carnival, or may have even attended the Notting Hill Carnival. Carnival is an event that's happened throughout many cities and many parts of the United Kingdom. In fact, when Boris Johnson went to try and pitch for London as the Olympic city, the key element of his pitch was that London is a diverse city, and one of the elements, or a key element of that diversity, is this multicultural festival called Carnival. Unfortunately, when we won the award to become this London city, everything after that, there's no presence whatsoever of Carnival. And that perhaps tells you something. Carnival is used very much as a prop to be able to propagate the notion of this multicultural, diverse city, but when it comes to taking it seriously, there's very little that's been done. So I wanted to spend the time I have looking at some of those challenges we face as far as Notting Hill Carnival is concerned. I'm a director of the Commonwealth Arts&Cultural Foundation, and so therefore we are very proud to be associated with this conference. So the case I want to make is that, is Carnival an appropriate platform to brand, to market, to populate, and to promote the United Kingdom? It is an event of such importance and popularity. Is its artistic excellence being associated with the benefits that may come to a particular country? I have participated in Carnival over the last 34 years as a judge, as a tour manager, taking Carnival to China and Malta, and I had intended next month in November to go to the United Arab Emirates with my Carnival. I'll explain that. But most of my involvement over these last years has been in the London Notting Hill Carnival. And the Commonwealth and Arts Commonwealth Foundation has been one of the main promoters of Carnival as a performance platform that showcase the excellence of the various art forms that make up this event. The London Notting Hill Carnival is one of the country's most celebrated and recognized street festivals. And I only have time to explore a limited element of this project that we call Carnival, that we take to new audiences and that we take to faraway places. And I'm arguing this morning, is that is an expression of the diversity of the United Kingdom. It is a showcase for the multidisciplinary art forms, and it is a suitable event for branding a positive public profile of the United Kingdom. What then? What is this Carnival? What is this thing we call Carnival that we're taking to China, that we're taking to United Arab Emirates, we're taking to all parts of the world? For me, Carnival, whether we define it as an event, whether we define it as a festival, whether we define it as a street party, or whatever we see it as an art form, there are three important modalities, three key points. One, it is seen as an act and a ritual of resistance. Two, is it a festival of otherness? And three, as a performance art. I don't have time to go through all three, so I'll just refer to them very briefly, perhaps consider two of those modalities. Carnival, by Errol Hill said, has become a symbol of freedom for the broad mass of the population, not merely a season for frivolous enjoyment. It has a ritualistic significance. It's rooted in the experience of slavery and the celebration of freedom from slavery. The people will not be intimidated. They will observe Carnival in the manner they deem most appropriate. And it is the observing of this Carnival in the United Kingdom that fascinates me, that occupies a lot of my time. Because the London Notting Hill Carnival occupies a physical space, a contested terrain on which notions of public space, notions of performance, and notions of participation dominate. It's important. And it is on this contested ground, on this contested terrain, that most of our recent battles for Carnival have been fought and are still being fought. Academic Dr. Pat Bishop defines Carnival as an opportunity for identity change and role reversal. A time for reversion. I think I have that quotation here. A time for reversion, for exploring our multiple and impermanent selves, and for leveling the complexities of the human condition, becoming extraordinary. So we see Carnival as a pre-Lenten, or indeed a summer festival of street parades and fancy costumes, or not so fancy costumes. Music from sound systems, black boxes, here and there steel band perhaps, crowds, controlled and rooted of course, judges, disputed judges' decisions, and then the thing starts all over again. It's a time of hustle and a time for the small man to make a bread or lose a bread. Colloquial expression, to make money, because you eat bread. And so opportunity as an entrepreneurial opportunity to acquire that. But in London, there's a general recognition and there's a general acceptance that Carnival, as part of its orthodoxy, is an art form that reflects the diverse cultures of London's many communities. But Carnival is not a singular art form. It's not one thing. It's an integrated framework for live performances that are rooted in several other art forms that involves the human body, that involves space, that involves movement, and involves time. And these art forms, with their complex features, pose a particular challenge for those involved in promoting them or in branding them in performance platforms abroad or in representing the United Kingdom. For a start, I think very few people understand the ancestral links and heritage of Notting Hill Carnival to its diasporic cousin in Trinidad and Tobago. In almost every test we've used to identify what people know about Carnival, foreign promoters quickly and readily identify photographs of Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival as being from Rio de Janeiro or being from Brazil. Trinidad celebrates Carnival and it says it is the greatest show on earth. Rio celebrates Carnival. Everybody knows about the Rio Carnival. Everybody knows about the New Orleans Mardi Gras. And some people, particularly in England, know about the Notting Hill. And what everybody expects, anticipates, a visual spectacle that will be colorful, that will be loud, that will be female-dominated, with erotic dancing and a lot of ethnic minority performers. And the major challenges in performing abroad is trying to take this performance away from the dominance of dance hall, away from mass, and away from the bacchanalia of bump and grind. The bottom line for taking Carnival abroad to new audiences and branding it as a cultural expression of a nation's art is finding an appropriate performance model that is sensitive to the local cultural and local political condition, and that at best enables the excellence of the art, the excellence of Carnival art to shine through. And that in itself is a major headache for us, a major problem for us. How far should we go to comply with the local conditions and the local traditions when you're taking a Carnival performance abroad? And what should we do when those traditions and customs run contrary to ours here in the United Kingdom? And just let me cite one example of how international branding can run foul of local customs. As I mentioned, the United Arab Emirates. We're invited by the organizers of the National Day festivities in the United Arab Emirates, who imposed conditions on our participation and performance that we had to resist. And this is the condition. Our group must be from 18 years to maximum 30 years. And I need only European performers with European Union passports, most of them white people, if possible. This is the actual bit. Although black people with European Union passports, no problem. One of 10 conditions of participation that was imposed on us. We accepted that our costumes, our Carnival costumes, we have accepted that our choreographed presentations needed to be sensitive to Islamic law and customs. We accepted, because our Carnival is very much female dominated, that the women had to be covered up, that there had to be no bodily exposure, no flesh, as it says, because we're very noted for very semi-nude costumes. And we accepted that there had to be no inappropriate dancing along the route that perhaps simulated sex or in any way expressions of gaiety and abandonment. We accepted all of that. But I think what I did is we drew the line at the whites only as the first priority. So the question facing us, do we accept this invitation to promote Carnival abroad? Do we then engage in a battle with the organizers when we get there? I decided not, because I knew once we got into the United Arab Emirates and we tried to buff the local conditions and rules, we wouldn't last very long. We'll be soon on a plane back or somebody rotting in some jail somewhere. So having an appropriate performance model for taking Carnival to new audiences abroad is an essential prerequisite for nation branding. And the United Arab Emirates experience demanded of us a clarity about what aspects of the art and culture we are promoting here and abroad. It placed upon us an urgency to have a specific model, a specific critical path that could lead us to identifying an appropriate performance model in a few years' time, because the problem still exists. We looked at the performance model of other people, and we arrived at certain decisions. So I will move that on because I think time is going. But we accept here that in London, there are echoes of multiculturalism, hybridity, and local state intervention. And two main issues influence the model that we should choose if we to use Carnival as a successful nation branding event. The first of these revolve around the concern of performers in their occupation and use of the public performance space. The event happens in public. It happens in a public space. It is not in a hall, it's not in a building. Carnival essentially is in the public realm. The challenge for them is not whether any one performer has a legitimate right to occupy that public space, but how each of the performers will use that space and how the impact of the use of that space on the regulatory authorities who control that space, and how those challenges of supremacy to define and to shape the use of that space. And that is a real issue. And there are several people occupying this space, whether it's Notting Hill, whether it's Port of Spain. The members of the Carnival Arts Arenas, the steel band, the calypsonians, the mass bands, the sound systems, the local traders and the small stall holders, the residents of the people who live and work in the community, the regulatory authorities, St. John's Ambulance, London Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, and of course, the public. All of these constituencies occupy that space. And the issue really that defines for us is how these performers are presented in that space. One of the masqueraders referred to, sorry about that. As an opportunity, as he says here, Peter Minshall, and I could read that the design and the costumes they wear is not just feathers, it's not just sequins, but it's sculptures, it's poles and cloth articulated by the limbs of the body, which acquire life because they are based on and follow the movements of the performers in a combination of dance and music, producing ever-changing shapes in Dionysian explosions. So for us here in London, the performance model is not just physical space, but is also a struggle for cultural and political space. The resistance and the confrontations occurs at every level of the organization and management of the event. The ownership and control of the streets of Notting Hill is very much between everybody. The stall holders, the individual sellers of merchandise, the pushers of illegal drugs and substances, the trading of the SMEs in the Carnival and the surrounding areas. There's a struggle for space at the very heart of the Carnival. And we are occupying space in Carnival. Those of you who have been to Notting Hill Carnival will recognize that there's two elements of space. There are two concentric circles in Notting Hill Carnival. And the two concentric circle is reserved for two competing constituencies that make up Carnival, two groups of performances that are engaging with the public. The outer space that most of you see is the Carnival route that is populated by mass bands, performance bands, steel bands, and mobile sound systems. This is the masquerade, the mass, the visual Carnival symphony. Then the inner space, the inner circle, is surrounded by live music stages and static sound systems playing every major type of music on the earth. Decibels of sound emanating from banks of speakers on street corners. In essence, those are the two concentric circles that make up the Carnival. And during the day, these two Carnival constituencies are in harmony, each dutifully managing their public space and providing entertainment to their respective publics. But come 7 o'clock in the evening, the inner circle closes down and the public, the audience, the listeners move from that inner space to occupy the space of the outer circle. That is the mass players, the followers in t-shirts, the spectators on the pavements. And what you have is the merging of two constituencies, the merging of two publics in the spaces, and that changes everything. Carnival as a form changes completely. The very nature of Carnival changes. Constituents become combatants for space and use of that space. Masquerade must battle with MTV. Costumes must fight for performance space. Costumes must fight for performance space with bands. Some call them gangs of young people who see the Carnival procession as a suitable space to occupy, as a suitable space to conquer, to dominate, to assert their specific rights to walk on the road unhindered. The Queen of Carnival must meet the King of Bling Bling. The Carnival artists must fight for their space against the invasion of the handbag snatchers and pickpockets. The clothes horses of Primani, the custodians of Sheffield Steel, and the bands that have no music and no symphonies. Carnival as a nation branding tool, despite these challenges, ladies and gentlemen, make a statement about British society, about cultural clashes, and most important, about Dionysian explosions. So we are wanting to make these explosions in the street, and I want to continue to commit myself to making these explosions happen, whether it's in Notting Hill, whether it's in China, whether it's United Emirates, and any country that invites us. Thank you.